We're going to find out how percentages relate to decimals. And there is quite an important link between percentages and decimals, which we're about to find out. Percentages and decimals. If I asked how could I write the percentage 57% as a decimal, you might wonder what I'm talking about. But what I mean by that is what you'd write for 57% is 0.57. Now, I can tell what you're wondering. Why do we bother writing 57% as 0.57? That's just silly. Well, just like percentages can be out of 100, sometimes they're more if you're increasing or multiplying, but they're usually out of 100. Similarly, decimals is the exact same thing, but we treat it out of 1. So 57% out of 1 would be 0.57. But why do we do that even? Because if we had a calculator, we could do, say the question was, work out 57%, 57% of 3,564. What we could do for that is we could get the calculator and we could actually times that number, 3,564, by 0.57. And that will give us 57%. That's why converting percentages to decimals is quite useful. Let's try another one just quickly. If they asked you what is 78% as a decimal, well, 78% as a decimal equals 0.78. Well, this is one that a lot of people sometimes can make mistakes on. What about if we had something like, what is 3% as a decimal? Now notice it's not 0.3%. Why not? Because that would be the exact same as 0.30, which is 30%. So 3% is actually 0.03. In other words, if we had a calculator and we wanted to find 3% of £48.76, we would do £48.76 times by 0.03, and that would give us 3%. We'll do a couple more hard ones, and then we'll leave it for today. Let's say, just to get us more space, I'm just going to take away some of that we've written. What if they asked us to find out 17.5% as a decimal? Well, you might think that's harder because it has the 3 numbers, but it's exactly the same as before, except we added a 5 on the end. So it would be 17% would be 0.17. And so 17.5% is going to be 0.175. And again, if we had a calculator, we would times the number by 0.175 to get 17.5%. A quick way to think about why that works is because if we times the number by 1, we would get the exact same number. In other words, we'd get 100% of that number. Now, 0.175 is 17.5% of 1. So, just in the same way as percentages work, decimals work out of 1. Let's do a final hard one just to show you that they're not always between 0 and 1. Say profits were £575 and then they increased by 300%. Now I remember reading that when I was younger and I used to think, how can anything increase by 300% when the maximum is 100%? Well, it can happen because 100% is like what you started with. So 200% will be two 100%s, or in other words, double what you started with. 300% is three 100%s, or 3 times what you started with. If we did want it as a decimal, it wouldn't be 1 point anything or 0 point anything. It would be 3.00, kind of like a 300. 3.00, which is 3, times by 575. We could use a calculator for that. I'll just have a go in my head. 1,500 plus 225 is 1,725, I hope. If I'm wrong, don't blame me too much. And that is basically how you convert percentages to decimals. Very quickly, a final thing. How about a fun little challenge? I'm going to give you the decimal, and you have to tell me what the percentage is. There's a decimal, 0.073. Can you work out what the percentage is? It would be not 73% and not 7%, but 7.3%. If we times that number by 100, we'd have got that 7.3%. And that's how you convert percentages and decimals.